Alright guys, so far we have seen how to bind properties from the data object to our HTML tags and inside the attributes. We have seen how to loop over a sequence of elements and how to display conditionally elements onto the page using conditionals. We have also covered how to define methods inside the methods object so that we can perform more complex operation on our data, and we have learned how to work with events using the V-on directive. In the next section, we will look on how Vue opens a two-way communication channel between a form input and a property defined inside the data object. Then we will use this knowledge to build our very first project together. Let's start by saying what the V model directive is and how it works. So the V model is another directive that Vue gives us, and we can use it to we can use it out of the box to simplify the way an input tag can communicate with the Vue instance and the property inside it, mainly inside the data object. It works like all the other directives. The difference is that when it's implemented, our application will listen for changes inside the input that has the vModel directive on it, and update the attached property values immediately inside the data object and vice versa. It is effectively a two-way communication channel between our template and our Vue instance. It's the Vue way to interact with user inputs and simplify our life as developers. So let's see a practical example and move to code mode. So what we have here is the basic structure for an HTML page. The Vue CDN is up here, and there is also a link to the Phantasm CDN, and we already have the main div with an ID of app, the root element that the Vue instance will look for. And then we have also connected a main.js file to our HTML file. So the next thing we need to do is actually create a JavaScript file. So the main.js file, we need to create this one. And of course, we need to define the Vue instance. So let app is equal to new Vue. And in here, we can define an object, and we have the element, which is the div with an ID of app. So say that, and then we can have a data object, and for now this is going to be empty. The next thing I want to do is actually add an input tag inside this div with an ID of app, so that we can see the V model in action and see how it communicates with our Vue instance. So let's add in here something like what we are going to build at the end of this lesson is going to be a tweet box. So let's add an h2 and say, what do you want to tweet about today? Something like that. And then we can add an input tag. So the input tag is going to be a text input, so text. And we don't need the name for now, we don't even need the ID. The only thing that I really need is the vModel directive, model. And I will specify something inside quotes in a minute, and a placeholder where we can say something like that. What's happening today, or what you want to tweet about? Anyway, doesn't matter. So inside the vModel directive, so the vModel directive works in the same way all the other directives work. So we can specify something inside quotes, and everything in there will be considered a JavaScript expression. So we actually writing JavaScript inside the quotes. So what I want to do is to refer to a property that I will create inside the data object, and this property is gonna be like named like tweet. So I will connect this input tag with the property inside the view instance called tweet. So we need to create this property because for now our data object is empty. So tweet, and this is gonna be like for now an empty string. Because we will see the two-way data binding in action in a minute when we go inside the browser and we see our HTML page. So let me open this with live server. And let me drag this over. So we have this title, of course, and we have the data, the input tag. So if we inspect the element and we see that there is the view tab, let me close this. And if we click on the root, we see that we have this tweet property. If we write something inside here, for now it's an empty string, but we can turn this into something else, like hello all. This should be a string anyway. So let's save this, and you see hello without the W at the end maybe. Okay, and you see that this is updated immediately as soon as I typed. So as soon as I saved this from the view instance, the connected value inside the input tag has been updated automatically for us in real time. So the same thing is going to be true if we write something inside the input tag, and you will see down here this tweet property changing in real time. So this is my first tweet. Okay, so this is updating in real time because there is this connection between the input and the data property tweet inside the view instance. So what we could do now is to add something else underneath this. So maybe we could add a paragraph under this input tag so we can see the content that we are writing inside the input box straight underneath. So let me go back to the code and let's add a simple paragraph, always inside the root element, of course. So let's add the paragraph, and using the mustache syntax, we can output the property that we are updating using the vModel. So tweet, okay, like that. So now let's go back. Let me arrange this two windows first so we don't have to, we can move easily between one and the other. Okay. All right. So now, as soon as I type, you should see what I type and here. So this is my first tweet, and this is working perfectly, and it's in real time, of course. So that's really cool. And now that we can see the tweet property changing in real time as we type, we can work with this and build our first application. So that's the way that the binding, and surely if we change the content inside this input tag or straight inside this property from the view instance. That's going to be updated on both directions. So let's build a simple tweet box, and so we can put things, use things that we learned. So we will create a text area, so we can get rid of this one and we can replace this with the text area, and inside the text area we will use the text area to see and connect the text area in the same way we did with the input tag. And after that we could display a number of characters that user is typing while he's typing, so he knows how many characters he has left, and he can understand if he can submit the form or not. So the next thing I want to do is to update a little bit this in here. So what you want to tweet about can stay. We can get rid of this part and we can add a form. The form is going to be anything. It doesn't matter if it's going to be a get or a post. For us it would be a get anyway. So we can get rid of this. For now it doesn't matter because we are not actually sending this data anywhere. So we have of course a beyond directive on the form, and we could call a submit and prevent the default okay. So when the user submits this form, we will execute a method that we will define inside our view instance, and the method could be named like submit data, and then in here we will have code here, and probably after the form we want to display a list of tweets probably. So we could say more code here for now. Okay. So what we have here, of course, is a basic, very basic structure. We first created the root element for the view instance, so it can monitor the markup and do its magic, so the view magic. Then we created the form tag with an event listener using the directive beyond. It listens for the submit event and runs a function called submit data. Then we will have to create this method inside the object, the data object, of course, sorry, inside the methods object. And we also had the prevent modifier so that the page doesn't refresh when the user submits this form. So the next step would be to define this submit data method inside the methods object in the view instance. So methods, and this is going to be an object with a method, and our method for now is going to be empty. Code here. Okay. So now the next step will be to add the text area and a submit button for the form, and of course use the vmodel directive so that we can make so that we can connect this text area with a data property. So the tweet data property that we have from the previous example is still there. We can use it to read what the user types. So let me create a form group using the bootstrap. Form group. Okay, and we need a label, and label will be tweet, and the placeholder. This is gonna be a text area actually, so it's not gonna be like that. And we can also get rid of this for now, I don't need it. So in here, I will put, oops. So in here I will put the text area and the text area name, I don't need it. I don't need this. I'll leave the columns and rows and I'll add a vModel directive and it's gonna be connected to the tweet property inside the data object. So will be tweet like that, and that's fine for now. I'll add something more in a minute. Then we have a button and it should be submit button and we can say tweet. Okay, so let me save this, and of course we will have more code here. So inside the form tag we can create these inside the form tag we create a label and the text area for our tweet box, and on the text area we use the vModel directive to bind the text area value to the tweet property inside the data object and vice versa. So now when one changes, the other one updates too. And one thing to note is that the vModel directive is used on the form elements like inputs, text area, checkbox, etc. And after the text area, of course, I've added a button, a submit button, so that when it's clicked, the forms data are sent to our application submit data method, and then we can process them. So let me add some properties inside this data object. What I want to do, so first let's see if it works, of course. So we have tweet area, and could look better if we had tweet, if we import Bootstrap, but for now it's fine. I will do that later. So if I type something in here, and then we check the view instance, we see that the text is inserted inside the tweet property. So that's fine. Maybe we could have less rows, could be like 5 rows, could be fine, yeah, a bit better. And so now inside the JavaScript file, we need to create a tweet property, and we have added that. And of course, we will use it to do something later on with the information that the user types in, and then maybe we can add this tweet to a list of tweets so that the later we can display them in a list. We also say that we want to simulate a tweet box, so we could like limit the characters that the user can type and show an error in case the user exceeds the amount of characters, and also maybe we could later show to the user how many characters he has left while he is typing. So that's how pretty much works a tweet registration box, or sometimes even tweet box. Later on, if I remember correctly, there was like a counter. Now it should be like a circle that fills up while the user types. So we could add, like, of course, we already have the tweet property, so this one, and we could add a tweets with the final S, where we could store when the user submits tweet all the tweets that he submitted, and then we can have a max length for the character limits. So let's add them to our view instance. So the first thing is gonna be tweets, and for now the tweets property is going to be an empty array, because we will fill this with objects. So we will create many objects while when the user submit its tweet will be transformed into an object, and we will add it to the tweets array. And then we have a max length. Okay, and it's gonna be like 100 characters. So we can set this to an integer that we can later use to make the comparison and check if the user, how many characters the user has left. So here, maybe we could write like under the tweet submission. Okay, something like that. So now with this tweets property, as we said, that we set as an array using the two-way data binding between the tweet property and the text area. We can push all tweets messages inside the tweets array, and then every time the user submits the form. And we couldn't do that inside the submit data method. So the next thing that I want to do is to implement a character counter. I'll do that before the implementation of the submit data. So we can show to the user counter while he types in the text area, so he knows how many characters is left. So let's implement this feature, and let's go back inside the HTML file, and in here, what I want to do for now, I'll do that down here. Later on in the course, we will create something cool. I promise. For now, it's just a proof of concept, and just to make these things work. And then we will refine the project, the tweet, simple tweet project. So let's have a div, and in here we could have like a span element, and on the span element we could have the if directive. So the if directive, what this should do is to make a comparison. So check the length of the tweet. So this is the property that holds values that the user types inside the text area, and verify that it is less than the is less than this max length. And if it is, we can show a message in here with how many characters the user has left. And we could do that. So we could say tweet. So inside the directive, we know that everything is JavaScript. So we can use length. Okay. And after that, we can say is less than the max length, like that. Okay. And if it is, we can show something. Okay, so we could go straight into to show what we need. So let's add the mustache syntax, and in here we can say max. Inside the backtick, we need to do that. So we could output a message like max. Max charters, like that, and then we could use these where is the tweet, could use the tweet length, okay, like that. So we say the max characters the user has, probably just like that, max, and this is going to be a variable right now because we use this syntax with the backtick to display the content of this variable, and it's going to be tweet.length, tweet.length, because we are going to get the length of this tweet. So while the user types, we want to see this information update in real time. And we say of, and then again, not a variable, and say the max length, max, like that, max length, and say, let's see if it works. So max 0 of undefined charters for now. Let's see why it gives this. Okay, max length, and it's misspelled. So there is a typo here. Okay, let's fix the typo and say, so we have max 0 of 200 characters. And we can type this is my tweet, and you see this increases while I type, so I can type anything I want and keep typing, and at some point it will reach 200 and it will disappear because of course our comparison is no longer true. So as long as this is true, this message will be shown to the user. When this is false, so if the max tweet length is greater than 200, this is not gonna be, it is not appearing anymore. So we could instead show an error message, and we can do that in a velse directive. So using the velse directive always on a span, and we can say velse. So if the first condition evaluates to true, we will show this error, this message to the user. So we will tell to the user how many characters he has. And instead, if we reach the limits, we can output an error message. We can add that class here, like class error message, like that. And then we can say in here, always using the backtick, max characters limit each, and then we could just say that, or we could say to the user how many characters in excess he has, so that he can delete something. And we could say, so excess characters, and it's gonna be what? It's gonna be this max length minus the length of the tweet. Tweet.length. And make sure we spell it correctly. And let's see what happens. So this is my tweet, okay. Let's copy something that is over 200. Let's have the lorem ipsum very long. Should be 200 words by default. So let's see. Yes. So max character limits reached and XX characters 21. So we need to remove 21 characters to respect the maximum amount of characters that we have available. What we can do other than that is to on the front-end side force the user and stop the user actually to insert more characters using an attribute on these on this text area. So we can use the max length attribute and say 200. Max length 200, and like that it should stop the user from typing more than 200 characters. And if you see max limit reached and excess character 0, so we cannot type more than that. I'm trying to type and nothing happens. If I remove a couple of characters, it says that I have 195, 197 characters and only 3 available. So that works. So that works pretty much fine. And the next step is gonna be actually work on the form submission. So I'm pretty much ready to submit a form. I want to click on the tweet button and submit this form. For now, nothing happens. What I want to do is every time I click on this tweet, these tweets array should have one element, so should contain the actual tweet that I typed, and could be, instead of an object, could be simply a string for now. Then we can transform this as an object, maybe record the data when the user insert this tweet for the first time. But we'll do that maybe later. So now let's implement this submit data. So this method here. So the first thing I want to do here is actually to verify something. So the first thing that we should do is to actually check if the tweet length is less than or equal to the maximum length, and in this case we will take the tweet and save it inside this tweets array, and then let's see. So let's start the an if statement and then say, so if so we need to grab the length of the tweet. So when we are inside the methods, and to refer to the property in the data object, we need to use the this. So the this refers to the instance of the current view instance. So this is gonna grab the tweet property, and then we can get the length, and we can verify if it's less than or equal to the max length, always using the this max length. So if it is true, then we can execute the code in here. And what I want to do is grab the without the dollar sign. So grab the instance and grab the tweets array and use the unshift method to add to the, every time I add a new tweet to the array, is gonna appear at the top. So the first element of the array will be the new element that the user adds. So we can later on show this in order of insertion. So when the user has added that. So what we want to add to the array is the current value of this tweet property. So we can just grab this and say this tweet. Okay, like that. Let's see what happens like that, and we will tweak this in a minute. So let me add something. I should have, yes. So I have already the lorem ipsum here. Okay, let's fix it up. And let's press this one, and let's first open the instance. So we have this string with the tweet that I typed in here inside the text area, and when I press the tweet button, it should be added to this array. Let's press it, and nothing happens. Yes, it's happening in a bit of delay, but here we have. So we have this value twice because I pressed this button twice. And I didn't realize immediately that the form was submitted because this is still here. So every time I press the button, I also want to update the value of the tweet property and actually bring it back to an empty array, so to an empty string, so that I know the form has been submitted and I can type something else. So let's say that we want to do that. This tweet is gonna be equal to an empty string. Let's add some missing column. So let's try again. So we add this tweet. We remove some of these spaces. Let's press the button and the form correctly updates itself. So it's empty now. So this text area is empty, it's been cleared, and we have one tweet inside this array. So if I keep writing and write another tweet, it's going to be up here, over here. So let's add a new tweet. Press the tweet button, and we now have two tweets inside the tweets array. So that works fine. And the next step is going to be what I want to do is actually to show these. Let me see. To show these tweet. So we could have an unordered list, and in here we have a list item, and the list item could have a v4 directive, and we can loop over the array of tweets and grab the single tweet. So for tweet inside the tweets array. And so now we have the single tweet, and we could simply do that. Because this variable now holds the single element of the array, so this is a simple array. And so every time I type something here, then I press tweet, this should appear over here. Type something else, and it appears at the top. So let me try to add the lorem ipsum text. Let's clear the spaces again, and you see every time I type something new, it appears right here at the top. So that's gonna be fine for now. What we could do more than that is, of course, make these a bit nicer. So we could import up here Bootstrap. I'm using a snippet for plots, like that. Before let me grab the CSS only from here. So let's grab Bootstrap and let's see if the form looks a bit better. And probably we are missing some classes for Bootstrap. So form control could be class form control. Let's see if this is the right class. Yes. So it's a bit better now. We can also add a class to this submit button. So class button primary. So it's going to be light blue. Okay. And we can also wrap everything in a container so it looks a bit better. or we can simply add the class container over here. That's not necessary, but just to make things a bit nicer for now. So that's it for this video. Let's review quickly what we have done. So the final code now looks like a looks like that. So we have the div with an ID of app, and inside this div we have a form, and then we have a couple of more elements. So the first part is, of course, there is this h2 for the title of this page, so what appears above this text area. And then we have the form. Inside the form, we used the v-on directive and the submit. It should listen for the submit event using the v-on directive, and we used also this modifier, the .prevent, to prevent the default behavior. So to refresh the page every time we click this button. If we remove this, every time I press this button and I add something, you will see that the page refreshes. Okay, and that's not what I want. So let's bring it back. Okay, so we prevented the default. We don't refresh the page, so we can use this form dynamically to submit data using the submit method that we define. So the submit data method defined inside the methods object. So we have this method here that we defined inside the methods object. We have a form group with a label, with text area, and after that we can get rid of some of these elements for now because we don't need them actually. So after that we have the submit button, and underneath we have this simple VS Code is playing up. It's not opening this line, but anyway, what we have inside here is simply a div element, a div tag. Inside this div tag we placed a couple of span. Here we have. So we have this span element with a if directive on it. This directive checks if the length of the tweet property, so what we used to bind the text area with the data object, because we have here this v model on the text area. And after that, so we checked if the tweet length is less than the max length of the property. So the max length is the property that we defined inside the object, and we set this to 200. So if it's less than that, less than 200, we show to the user this message, so how many characters he has left while he's typing. Otherwise, using the VELSE directive, we show to the user an error message. So now actually this error message is not going to appear because we use this max length attribute on the text area, which prevents the user from typing more than 200 characters. But we can get rid of this max length if we want and show to the user the alert at the bottom. So if we types more, oops, didn't want to do that. If we type more than that, you see that we have this message at the bottom. We could change this since we are using Bootstrap. We could change this and to this an alert class. And alert danger. Let me see if I remember correctly. Yes, so we can show this to the user. So he has a message. Maybe we can move this up here so he knows it better, or yeah, maybe up here it looks better. Just under the just under this title, and we can say change the comments and update them, so alert the user and submit the form. We can get rid of this, and in here we can add a new message and say a new comment and say tweets. Okay, so now we see the maximum character limits up here, and we can tweet, and it appears right on the bottom. And if we exceed the characters, we see that up here. It's over this label, so maybe at the bottom it was better and just had some padding to it. Let's move it back to the bottom, just under the form, and we can add the class here, my3, so we can, yeah, so it looks a bit better. Let's type more. Okay, let's know what I want to type, but anyway, you see the effect. So we have reached the characters limits and we exceeded 157. We can get rid of 157 characters. So that will do it for today. In the next chapter, in the next lesson, we will clean things a little bit, because if we take this bit of code, actually this part, so the alert user part, so if we take this bit of code, we can see that we could improve the code a little bit by using a couple of approaches to clean up the code. And we could either use computed property or methods, so that we don't have to output the entire message inside these span elements. But I'll do that in the next video. Thank you for watching and see you later.